And as Tricia mentioned, there's several people that have used Audacity and have been using it for a while. I don't profess to be the be all end all expert on everything Audacity. So if someone knows another shortcut or something, then speak up and we can talk about that too. So there's nothing, sacred about that. But please ask your question. No matter what, we all started at some point and we all went, okay, where do I start? And so there is no dumb question at all. So, all right, that's my only entrance to this, I guess. The other thing too is I do have a playtime, but I think instead we might just bounce back and forth between slideshow and Audacity to kind of show and tell at the same time. So, does that all work? Okay. Okay. All good. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share then, and I'm going to go ahead and do my whole screen because I'll be bouncing all over the place. But let me know when you guys can see this. Let me do the full slideshow. And I'm going to hide this, I think. All the way down here, I think. Maybe that won't work. I don't want that in the way. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I'll put that up there. I probably won't be able to see anybody, so just speak up. Can you hear me as well and see everything? Right? Just double
Yep.
checking.
Hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started then. Here's kind of what I have on the agenda. And again, we'll go if you guys have questions, we'll go in whatever direction. I have a pad of paper next to me too, because if you stump me, and it's entirely possible that you will and can, then I'll write it down and I'll research it for you if you want. And I'll get back so that everybody has it. But first, I thought for all you folks, if you're just starting with a home recording, we can go through that a little bit. What do you need to do a home recording? Some of the essentials that you might need. How do you get set up in your shop so that you can get everything squared away? That's also something that we can talk about. And again, if this is, we'll pass right by these slides really quick if everybody's already set up and doing all of that. Also was asked to say what's going on in the latest Audacity. It's 3.7.3. 3.3, 7.3 came out just a couple of days ago. 4.0 is on the horizon, so we can talk about that a little bit. And then I thought we just go through the Audacity interface, the whole thing from top to bottom, not going through some of the more advanced stuff, but just making sure that everybody can get their way around it a little bit. And then a hands-on, and this is where we'll go. Maybe we might bounce back between the interface and hands-on, just kind of bouncing back and forth. And then I do on my produced shows, I do add music to it. I like the sound of that. It just makes it more engaging. Also, I add sounds between my readings, my articles, just so that everyone can know, hey, oh, we're changing again. It obviously, and if you like to do that and we learn how to add music to this, then we can do that. I don't know how much time we'll have either to go through all of these. So yeah, I gave Trish my permission to hand out my email address so that if you do have questions and you want to know more, I'm assuming you guys will get this deck as well. And if you want to know more, you want to do a little bit more, I'll be happy to spend time with you. Well, like I say, I enjoy this. It's a lot of fun. I used to do video production as well as IT stuff, so I'm a double geek, I guess. And so I love doing it. So it's no hassle and no fun. It's actually quite fun. So if you want to reach out and if you have questions or want to up your game a little bit, I'd be happy to help when any way I can. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Um, is anybody wanting just now setting up for your home recording? Do we need to go over some of the equipment and the setup that might be helpful? Would this be helpful for anyone, or do we need to pass by this?
Steve, I
It
know that
would.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I know that there's several folks that are, but go ahead, the other Steve.
That's okay. Yeah, I am.
Oh, you do? You'd like to? Okay. Well, do you have a desktop, or are you generally planning on doing it on your tablet
I have a laptop,
or laptop? Okay.
and I've set up. I've downloaded Odyssey and or whatever it's called, Audacity. What is
Mhm.
it?
Audacity.
Audacity,
That's right.
and I have the microphone and headphones, and uh, but after reading some of the instructions, I'm kind of stuck. But I probably haven't engaged in the directions more than 30 minutes or an hour. So
Okay.
but a little intimidated by it.
Yeah, I understand that. And, computers are kind of funky. And if you start adding microphones and stuff and you're not used to that, that could be, and then you got to figure out, okay, why isn't it working? So I get all of that. And I'd be happy to, if you can't quite figure it out, you spend a little bit more time and you're stuck, just ping me and I can help you work through it. Uh,
Okay.
you got a microphone though. And the microphone is critical. Audacity, of course, is important, and you got to have that. But if you don't have a good microphone, specifically one made for voice, because that's what we're doing exclusively, then I'd recommend that you get that. Don't go, you don't have to go all out and spend hundreds of dollars for it. I have a pseudo tack. That's this thing here. If you notice, it's on a little boom here in front of me. I bought that for $52. Now that was just, it was quite a while ago, but you don't have to be. You don't have to break the bank to get a good microphone, but make sure that it's a good one, one that can record it, one that is a cardioid that can block out sound. It doesn't come from every direction. Somebody walks in in the room, or somebody's yelling in the other room. It's generally most designed for something right here by where your mouth is. So, but that's what I recommend there. And then, Steve, I would just say, uh, without going into troubleshoot your particular setup, if you got all of that stuff, you got the microphone, you got Audacity loaded. If you still run into problems, just ping me and I'll see what I can do to help. Okay.
Okay. Hmm.
All right. Any other questions on this?
And I will throw out there too, just to add in that we also do have mic kits available that if folks would like to, purchase their own, we certainly understand that. But if not, we also do offer that opportunity for folks, for volunteers as well.
That's
Oh, that's
what I
awesome.
got. That's what I got back in March of 2020 when the uh, COVID shut down the studios, and I was very grateful for that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a new thing. I had not heard you. That's an awesome service. That's awesome. Okay. Also, then it sounds like for the most part, everybody's already set up. Um, I'll skip by this a little bit. Steve, if have you read Steve with Audio Reader before? You're just going to a remote kind of the home studio setup. Is that right?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, I think so. I can't see you,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Over 20 years.
Okay. So all of this stuff you're familiar with at least.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Well, then let's start talking Audacity. As I mentioned, the latest version is 3.7.3. The latest stuff in the last part of Audacity 3.x is really rather unremarkable. They do a lot of bug fixes and stability and performance things. So there's not a whole lot. I'm hearing there's a lot of cool things coming in 4.0. But here are some of the things that on the latest version, either 3.6 or later, um, and I'll just go through them. And if you're interested in those, I can show you how they work. But a master effect, if you're used to putting some real-time effects on your tracks, you can only do that one track at a time. So if you want to have everything be equal, and you got to set that same effect on each track. If you have more than one track, now they have a master track, which you can a master effect that can affect all tracks. It makes things easier. A compressor and a limiter is an effect that you can put on the audio or whatever track it is that manages the audio and the sound of it. The themes too, you can get a light or dark themes. I can walk you through how to get different colors of how it's set up by default. You like to have you like a darker look that helps your eyes or whatever. Let me know. We can go through that. And then the Get Effects button that just added. I just updated to 3.7.3, and the Get Effects button showed up. So you'll see in the Audacity kind of interface walkthrough, you won't see that Get Effects button there because I caught screen prints before it showed up. But we can talk about that. And really, that's nothing more than an effect to go a button to take you out to a marketplace to buy effects. So we won't go over that anyway. So, but this is what the latest stuff that's going on with Audacity. As I mentioned, 4.0 is coming up somewhere early spring, May, I think is what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing some really major user interface changes. They're overhauling the whole user interface. and adding new things as well. So, you know, we'll have to figure out what that is when that comes.
Steve, on that update, I want to throw out there, and I think maybe somebody else had another question too,
Oh,
but
yeah.
sometimes I get questions from folks on whether or not it's really worthwhile to update to the new one. I mean, obviously, it will continue to push you to that, and so maybe some recommendations on and or pros and cons to keeping your old version or updating to the new version, because that tends to be something that can be um, sort of frustrating. So maybe do we need to do it? Do we not need to
Yeah,
do
it's a
it?
great question. I follow the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For what we're doing, right? There's all the bells and buzzers, and even with the production that I use like one 50th of all of the functionality that's in Audacity. And if you're just doing the tracks and recording your voice and that's it, you might do a couple things. Most of the stuff that we'll do for this is pretty basic. And it's so you should never feel obligated to upgrade. If it's working just fine now, then why change? And Audacity, at some point, Audacity will force you, but they're not like a Microsoft or whatever. This is a freeware, right? So they don't really have an organization that says, sorry, you can't use it for free anymore. So as long as it's working for you, then there is no obligation to upgrade at all. Okay. So
So how old? I mean, I just downloaded it a couple weeks ago, and it's 2.3.3 version. That
okay.
seems way behind 3.6 or
Yeah.
whatever.
I don't know. When you install it to begin with from Audacity, my guess is that they don't put the latest build out there for each time that they do it. So you just download. There's a way to go in. I think it's in the help about. There's an upgrade button, uh,
Okay,
and you can click on that, and it'll automatically upgrade you to the latest.
great.
Mhm.
Do you know if you do change to a more updated version of Audacity, what happens to all the files that you have on your Audacity site? Does anything happen with those from the older version?
No, it shouldn't. The AUP3s do not. Those are the files that Audacity creates. That shouldn't change. If you're using an effect, a new effect that is never, that was never, well, so no, you're upgrading to new stuff. So generally, I've not heard of any issues with that. I wouldn't worry about it. And like I say, for the kind of recordings that we do, it's pretty darn basic what we do. So I wouldn't worry about it. I've not heard of any bad things that happen from the core stuff.
Okay.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, hi, this is Rosemary.
I'm
I
Rosemary.
hi, I do voice recordings also outside of this group, and
Okay.
I remember there was a time, I think it was maybe one or two episodes ago, where we were told by the company I work for that do not upgrade because there were so many bugs, people were losing their work. I don't know if you heard about that.
Well, it all depends. Like it all depends. When you get to something like and I did software for almost 30 years.
Okay.
So the general rule that I follow is if they're going from say Audacity 3 dot, number dot number, right? If it's
Okay.
going from 3.6 to 3.7, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd upgrade it
Okay.
if you feel like you need to, because most of what they're doing is just fixing things or maybe doing some small tweaks. When
Okay.
they go to the first number, like in the screen here, it's 3 dot. When 3
Hmm.
dot goes to 4 dot, then that usually indicates a big change,
Okay.
right? So, and then if you want to, well, okay, well, and that's when a lot of bugs show up is when they go from a 3 to a 4 or a 4 to a
Yeah.
5. So if you want to wait until they go, okay, we're ready for upgrade 4.5, by
Hmm.
then they will have fixed all the bugs in 4.0 and 1 and 2. So,
Okay.
but again, you shouldn't feel any pressure at all to upgrade. If anything, maybe it's out of curiosity on what the new stuff is. But for what we do, we just do a simple track and maybe a few music drops in it. And I don't even use too many effects. In fact, I use very little. So there's no need to upgrade it. You shouldn't feel pressured to do that. If, like I say, if it isn't broken now and it's sounding great on your recordings now, then there's no need to change if you don't feel like you want to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Steve. This is Marlisa, and you are mentioning, and on the slide, there's something about effects. Could you just give a quick example of what an effect is? Thank you.
Oh yeah, okay, and we'll see a few of them here. I'll show them to you. But a fade in and a fade out is an effect. You have an equalizer, much like you have on a stereo, right? When you're listening to your music at home, you can set the treble and the bass and the different wavelengths to get the really good sound. That's another equalizer is one. They have chirp sound, they can add special effects and chirp sounds and all kinds of things to it. And I'll show you a few. A compressor and a limiter is an effect. There's also an effect that you can get rid of hissing noise in the background, right? That's also an effect. So it saves your voice, but gets rid of hissing noises if you have a lot of that, right? So all of these are different kinds of effects, right? Does that help?
Yes, definitely.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Sure. Anything else? Okay. All right. Like I say, don't hesitate to raise questions. You guys are doing great already. Thanks. All right. So I thought we'd do first is just walk through the interface of Audacity. I call it the anatomy of Audacity. And probably if most of you have been in here, then you already know all this, so I won't take too much time, but just so that we all kind of get our bearings a little bit. Obviously, you have your menu. The strip below the menu and above your tracks is called the toolbar, and we'll go through that. And then you all have seen this little section over here that has effects, right? This is where your real-time effects are. I'm not going to cover the details of this. This goes into some of the more advanced things. But the real-time effects are literally real-time, meaning as I adjust them there, it affects the track as they go, versus have to wait to record and then go back and work on the track afterwards. Within the track, each of these are tracks. I can have an unlimited, well, no, I think Audacity can do up to 16 tracks. In this example, I've got a voice track, which is this at this top one. And then down here, I got a music. This is a little stinger sound, right? It's a little bit of music that goes with it. You have within each track, you have the ability to, increase the volume or change the channel from its left, right, or center channel. You can do some special other things. You can solo it or mute it, things like that. These are the clippings in your tracks of your actual recordings. And then down here at the bottom is another toolbar portion that you can turn on and off. These are just more indicators and things that you can do that can be handy as you're recording. But these are the general these are the general sections of Audacity that you'll be confronted with. Okay, and we're going to go through each of these. So I'm going to go ahead and go pie these, and we'll just go straight into the menu. What I decided to do is just kind of go through. These are the key things. There's some that say not covered. Some of these are more advanced stuff, things that we generally won't use. I'm not going to generate a sound effect, and add it, which is chirps or sounds behind the scenes. Generally, I wouldn't imagine anybody would want to use it. If you do and you want to figure out, then there's no harm in playing with it. You can't, just open up your own little project and then play. That's always what I always do to find out these new things. But if you want a little help and walk through, then I'd be happy to do that offline with any of these other things. But the other things I'd like to spend time through is walk through these. And again, some of these are pretty basic. So I may not spend a whole lot of time, like on the file. If I do that first, I'm assuming by now everyone knows how to save a project. You can save it. It saves as an Audacity file, which is this AUP3. The key that you want to do is when you open up your Audacity window, before you start recording, go ahead and do a save project so that you're saving it already to wherever you want to store it on your hard drive. And you want to make sure, set it so that, oh, that's export. Sorry. That's all it is. You give it a name, you find out what the file is and the folder is that you're going to store it is. I always do that first, because when you get into the heat of things and you start recording, if it's not saved, if something goes south, then it's gone. Audacity does not have an autosave feature. It doesn't automatically save. There is some recovery though. So it may not catch up to the last second of your recording if it bends unnaturally. So I always get into the habit anyway of just going up to do file save every once in a while. I don't, it depends on when I'm thinking about it, but always make sure you do that just to save some grief. And then on the other end, when you're done, you want to export your audio. That's also here. And that takes whatever instructions that has you've created in the Audacity file. You've all these clippings and tracks and things like that, and this will then convert it into an actual output file. You guys know them as WAV files, right? And
Yes.
then these are the things, the settings you want to make sure that you do for audio reader. These are how audio reader needs to have it. You need to have it, save it as mono, which means a mono is a mono track. You guys already know this. A stereo has a right and a left channel. A mono track just has one channel. Everything's in the one channel, and that's how they like it. So make sure that you do those if you haven't already. I'm guessing most everybody has done that. But these are the two out of the file options that are listed there. I'm assuming everybody knows how to close a project and quit, and a new project, or if you want to open one that you've already opened before and you want to find it, then that's that. But any questions on this one? This one's pretty basic, but I thought I'd spend time anyway.
Thanks, Steve. One thing I will note, this is Trish here, that folks are asking for the presentation, really appreciating those slides. So thank you for walking through those and breaking things down in that visual manner. It really helps. And the other thing I will throw out is that as much as that, what you just walked us through regarding the project and how to export it, saving it as a project, then exporting it, I know that is simple, but it is a challenge, especially when folks first start. So I appreciate you walking folks through that. And again, if folks find they have more questions on that, we can certainly walk through that again later. So,
well, here, let's go ahead and do that here now. I have just a real goofy recording here. I thought I'd do just for this purpose, right? So if you want to save it, right, all of this is just a recording. Welcome to Audio Reader's virtual coffee bar, right? So if you want to save it, right, and then in this case, I saved this as a coffee bar, right? So if you want to export the audio, come down to export audio, and then it comes up to this export to the cloud. I just do it on my computer. I've never tried to do up in audio.com. I think it's just an attempt to eventually charge you money for storage. So I just go ahead and use my computer. And then it's gonna default to the file name to whatever it is of the project that you created. In this case, it's Coffee Bar. I'm gonna find the location that I want to put it in. In this case, I'm gonna put it down in test here, which I created, right? And then here's that format, just like on the screen. You want the format to be a WAV file. It's going to default to stereo, so you want to move it to mono. The sample rate you want to be at 16,000.
Hold
and
it.
You want to make sure that it's the entire project that you're exporting.
Wait. You said it needs to be 16,000. When Nick Carswell set up my system that I've been using, and then he updated it a year later, he said the sample rate, fix it to 44,100. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah, that's true. You can do it at that higher rate. It's a bigger file size. Yeah, ever since basically we've been shifting to a lot more streaming and online content. 44, it's not critical, but if your memory can handle it and your internet is fast enough, 4400 would be. Yeah, we're trying to make it a standard, although we've been kind of limping into that a little bit.
Okay.
So you're fine at 4400.
Good.
It'll move. The files will be a lot smaller and easier to move at 1600, and that's what our studios still use 16,000 killer or 16 kilohertz. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that higher rate, that higher sample rate that must be Nick, right?
Yep.
That gives you a more robust file, right? So, but for the purposes of the output that you have, right, this is your minimum. So, all right, and then hit export, and off you go. It will then export the file. In this case, it went so fast I didn't have a little window pop up to give me my progress. It just saved it, right? But then when I go to my location there, let me go there. right? I have, in this case, I have the wave file here. I also have the AUP file, which is this thing. And then these are two files that are temporary files. So the minute I close this project, this window for the coffee bar, these two files go away. So Audacity automatically takes care of these two. They're just temporary. It just has them open while I'm working, and it takes care of it itself. So the AUP3 is the Audacity file, the project file itself, and then the wave, here's your wave file. Okay? Does that help?
Yes, and I did have a question from Roberta in regard to, she does send in MP3 files, and I know that we do convert those. So I don't know, Nick, if you want to speak to, I know we ask for WAV files, but is there, is that just a preference or?
MP3s will be smaller, so if the big fact one of the major factors after sound quality is the file size, and considering how many files we send over Dropbox, MP3 is fine as well. Honestly, yeah, we have a lot more flexibility these days than we've had in the past. So MP3s at that higher sample rate actually is maybe the best combination for you.
Yeah.
So at that 32 or 44 one would be totally fine.
Yeah, and you'll notice here in the format, if you save it as an MP3, Audacity supports that. When I did that, you'll notice it changed the sample rate to a default. But yeah, right, as Nick said, you've got, you got the other defaults that are here, other, you know, other settings you can go. But this is all still within the export audio window that you do. Okay. Anything else?
This is Marlisa. So, I'm looking at Nick now, that it's so easy for us to change these settings. What do you really want us to do? Because I've been doing MP3s and it's like, oh, I should be doing WAV files. What do you prefer?
I think considering the sending of files, that is the big part. I don't know if anyone on here was around when we first, in a panic in March 2020, people were recording in 15-minute segments. We were really dealing with a lot of different variables. So MP3 might actually be the best because it has the combination of the smaller file size with the higher sample rate, if you, not to confuse anyone. But so MP3 actually is
All right.
probably the easiest. Yeah.
All right.
Not to make that call on the spot here, but
I will change the slide and I will do the same.
Thank you, Nick.
But Nick, the fact that I'm sending it as a WAV file and not MP3 is fine, right?
yeah, I would say if anyone who's currently sending files in, if whatever way you're doing it is working best. So it's a combination. Again, this is what I mean. It's what's working, what again we had to learn what works, and then what the standard needs to be, basically with Audacity and Audition, actually, where we do our converting. It's all the same kind of lossless conversions. So MP3 is basically the way to get the highest standard with the smaller file size. If Carl, if you're uploading waves and it's not a problem for your internet or anything like that, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay.
MP3s have a little bit more compression, but it's not noticeable for our purposes, right? So,
and it's still better than the 16,000 hertz sample rate, actually.
So I'll change over to MP3s too, because like I say, you just saw how easy it is to go to a WAV file, from a WAV file to an MP3 on Audacity. So, okay.
Love this discussion. See, it's great.
Yay. Hey, cool. All right. Let's move on. Edit.
Okay. This is where this is the main reason that I've did this meeting, is because when I'm recording, be it a program for audio reader listeners that day or the next day, or when I'm doing my 52 episode Fabulous 50s, if I'm speaking along and I make a flub, then I stop and I want to back up and cut it out. So I just want to see what you folks do, how you do it, because
you're talking here already.
I figured out some ways to do it, but anyway.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's actually a lot of ways to do it. And actually I have a section down here when we get into tracks. Where is it? Right here, that we could talk about deleting and doing that. But if we want to, so let me get through some of that before, let me get through some of this before we get to that, if that's all right. but the editing and cutting and splicing, all of those things, I figured were going to be big topics anyway. So I don't have, you'll see, I don't have cut and delete and copy paste in here as the things to talk about because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later if that's okay. Hope so.
Sounds great, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. There's just a couple things I want to on the edit ones other than these key things to do is on preferences. I'll go over that before remove special. This is just your audio settings. Generally, I leave them here. This is a better thing to leave them as started, the default. So this is generally you better. And like I say, when you're exporting it, you can change that. But when you're actually doing the recording, you want a full sound as much as you can. This is one thing that I've heard. When I do delete, say, a clip, that it leaves a gap, right? A big gap, an empty gap where that deleted clip was. Well, Audacity have this setting in track behaviors where it can fix that a little bit, right? If I go back over here, this is in edit, preferences, in track behaviors. There's this editing a clip can move other clips, right? So if I ultimately what that means is if I delete a clip in between two others, rather than leave the gap, if I leave this unchecked, then when I delete the clip, there will be a big gap where the deleted clip was. If I click on this, then the clip on the right-hand side will immediately cover the gap and come up next and abut the clip before it and close the gap. It'll get rid of the gap that was there. Does that make sense? So that is one way so you don't have to keep, oh no, if you're going back and you have all these different clips all the way, you got it 40 minutes worth of recordings and 20 clips or whatever, how many clips you have, and then you want to go back and you want to delete clip number 5. And if you leave a gap, then I got to manually shift everything, move everything, and highlight everything and slide it down. Then this will take it for you. This will get rid of the gap for you if you want that. And you may not want to, but it's there.
I'm seeing people clapping their hands, Steve. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's in the preference. That's always good. Okay. Yay. Well, then good. Something new. And if you do that, and the reason why I did the preferences first, because if you turn this on and then at some point you want to delete something and still leave the gap, you can always come back and uncheck that box, or you can go to remove special and you can say cut and leave a gap, or delete and leave a gap. And even though your setting is here to say no, shift everything, you can still do this in remove special and it'll do that one time leave of the gap that you want, right? It's either way we'll do it. Also, one other last thing on this, on the remove special, if you want to highlight an area in the track that you want to make silent, you can do that and then hit silence audio, right? So if I go back to here, for example, and I say, oh shoot, I want to make all that silent, then I can come over to edit, remove special, silent audio, and voila, it is silent. Whatever I highlighted is now silent. All right, so just FYI, that's another quick way if you wanted to get rid of some background noise or something that you didn't want, and you didn't want to re-record something. All right, questions about that?
I am not seeing any hands up, so I think we are good to move forward.
Okay. Real quick on the view, this is one thing that will be very handy. If you're not familiar with it, in view, you have history. And Audacity keeps a history of every single thing that you did. Okay? So sometimes if you're familiar with undo, I didn't talk about undo over here. That's also later, but undo, if you're familiar with undo, all right, you do a flub. I accidentally did, which is what I just did here. I'll go back and do the remove special and silence audio, but you'll see it now. I want to undo that. I can do that several ways. I can come up to edit and do undo, and that'll bring it back. Or I can actually redo it. I can redo what I just did and go back and forth. If you're familiar with shortcuts on your keys, if you hold down your control button and do a control and then hit Z while you're holding the control button down on a Windows machine, then that's the same as this. You'll see the control plus Z. That's your keyboard shortcut that can do that as well. Just FYI. So the undo is a powerful thing. But the undo generally kind of goes, you keep going undo, undo, undo. You keep going back and back. But if you just pull up um, your history, I can go all the way. No, right here when I added bass and treble to the master, that's where I want to go back to. I don't want to hit undo, undo, undo each time to get me back there. I can open up my history button. I can click and highlight whatever step I want to go to and hit OK, and it will take me there. And any steps that happened after that, Audacity will ignore and forget, as if you were back in time right there when you did that. Okay? It's important if you do a flub and then you make another flub on top of the flub and you go, man, can I just start over before I did my flub? This is a way to do that. Okay. Toolbars. I have a whole nother section on toolbars, so I'm going to skip by that. Transport is interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with transport. There's a couple things. If you open up Audacity and suddenly you can't find your microphone or your speakers and it's not working, it can't, for some reason you're trying to go, why can't I get my microphone? It's not, my computer isn't recognizing my microphone. Then if you come down to transport and do a rescan audio devices, it will force Audacity to go and inquire to your computer and say, give me a list of all the microphones and audio devices that I need. So it will actually ask the computer to refresh the list if somehow it missed it. Sometimes that happens to me. So that's always good. There's a couple things in transport options that is kind of good. If you like continuous scrolling, if I go, if you'd like to, how do I put this? If you'd like to keep the cursor always in the center of your screen as you are recording, normally when you're recording, the cursor goes until it goes off, and then the whole Audacity shifts again, and then your cursor goes off again off to the far right, and then it shifts again. You guys are familiar with that? If you would rather have the cursor always in the center of your window as you're recording, then come into transport options and click continuous scrolling. Okay. I'm not going to do that. It kind of freaks me out. I prefer to have it scroll and then come back so I see the progress. But if you like to have that in the middle and you just rather, here, if you got limited screen space, for example, is another reason you might want to do it. And I just want to see where I'm recording at. That would be one good thing.
I see folks are nodding their heads and smiling and making notes. So
okay.
Good.
Good. Thank you. There's also hear other tracks during recording. Oh, by the way, clicking on it, if you click on it to enable it, when you click on it, it will have a little check mark next to it that lets you know you turned on or off any of these items here, right? The other thing that I use a lot is, and actually I turn this off, is hear other tracks during recording, because I include some bumper music, right? And just about every single bumper music, I start my voice over that music before it ends, right? So as it's fading out, I'm already talking. Well, I used to have to, and this is a later function that's Audacity did, and I loved it. I used to have to mute all those other audio tracks with the music on it, just so that when I'm recording, my playback isn't, I'm not playing over the recording that I've got. So this way, I don't have to worry about muting all the other tracks. I am just going to record. I don't have to, I'm just going to space it and I'm just going to record it. And while I'm recording, the only thing that it's recording is my voice. So all the other tracks that might be active, it's ignoring. So that's a beautiful thing for me anyway. And if you use audio or music to your audio, then and if you haven't used that, then that's a beautiful thing for you, I'm betting. Tracks, add new, really, I've got a whole nother section here on tracks, and I don't know, Trish, I don't know how I'm doing, if I'm doing well or not. But I'm gonna skip most of this because there's a whole new section on tracks. Other than, right, you have a choice of doing a mono or stereo. Nick, I'm assuming you still want everything in mono either way, right? Or maybe you don't care either. Huh?
Yes. Yeah. Mono. Always mono.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and do mono here when you're adding a new track. For me, I used to do that. I put everything as mono, but when I export it and I create it as mono, that's the time that I do it now. I don't bother with it. If I have an audio piece that's, I by natural when I click on my microphone, it becomes a stereo track. I have some music that's mono music, or sometimes it pulls in as stereo. I really don't worry about it too much because I'm going to let the export, I'm going to turn it all to mono anyway. Sometimes if you have a stereo track of music and you turn it to mono, it's going to choose, I think, generally the right track or the right channel of that, and it may not be everything. So just leave it in, right? Or you can always convert it to mono, but that's an extra step. Why do it? But it's there. It's those are the two. Label and time tracks I wouldn't worry about at this point. It's not something that generally anybody of us would use. Again, if you want to play with it, go for it. If you want to ask me about it, feel free. I'll be happy to answer it. But for our purposes, we'll skip by that.
And Steve, I'll just give you a heads up that we're about 10 minutes out. So I
Oh,
think
wow.
we can continue on in those 10 minutes, but I think then maybe after that point, we open it up for some questions. So
Yeah.
just to kind of give you a heads up, and I'll give you another heads up in 5. Sound
Thank
good?
you, thank you. Well, then I'm going to put this in super fast, man. That went really fast. I want to get to the edit, the cuts, and things like that the gentleman asked. I want to get to that. We'll skip by this. If you're wondering to know how the toolbars work and what's on the toolbars, this is this. I think I mentioned back here on the view toolbars. You can go here to turn on what you want to see in the toolbars or hide in the toolbars. That's in the view option. I failed to mention that. So I'm going to skip by. These are all, if I turned them all on, all of these things would show. The things that matter, at least to me, that probably would be important. Obviously, the transport toolbar, I had that grayed out, but that's pretty self-explanatory to play and stop and forward and record. So I skipped that in my document here. I went instead to the tools, the edit toolbar, and things like that. But I'm going to skip that for now. And I have for this, for each of the items here, I have a separate slide that talks about here's the toolbar, the things in it. There's some good stuff. We're just not going to get to it. The edit, you can do a zoom in and zoom out. One thing that's really cool, I'm going to do this for the zoom because I don't know how many of you do it. If I go back to here, right? In fact, let me open. Um, wow. Okay. All my latest. I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually go to a recording for a Journal World that I have. Right. You'll see I have several tracks. I have a number of tracks here, and I have a lot of takes. Right. So you'll see I'm zooming in and out. Really easy. I'm not clicking on buttons or anything. I can zoom in. I can see exactly, oh, I want to stop here. I want to take a break here. I want to get rid of this, which I do often, right? With my deletes, you'll see each of these clips. There's an overlay where I have some music playing in between my vocals. Um, Here I got a break, right? How do I do a break? And to do that is to zoom in. You can do a control button and then hit control 1 to zoom in or control 3 to zoom out, right? That's one thing. Or if you have a mouse with a scroll roller on your mouse, then just hold your control button down and then scroll. One way or the other is a scroll up or close or a scroll back and out. I use that hundreds of millions of times in my recordings, right? To see where I'm at, to see where I need to go, and all of that, especially if I'm trying to edit. Then I want to zoom in here close to find out where the gap in my voice is. And you can generally see, here's a place where there's no speaking, right here, right in this spot. So you want to zoom in close enough where you can see that. You can't do that if it's out this far out. Okay, so that's the only thing I want to talk about on this part for zooming. It's important. And if you're not familiar with how to zoom and do it well or do it easily for you, I'd practice it because those things, if you don't have a little wheel on your mouse, then that control 1 or control 3 will do the same. If I keep hitting control and then 1 1 1 1 1, you'll see I zoom closer in, and then 3 3 3 3 3 I zoom out. So important. All right. Let's see. I am going to skip The audio bars, how to set up your audio for that. That's the next here. Let me back to slideshow. And real quick thing on audio, when you are recording, here is your best space, right? If you start getting it here, right, generally past -6 and about -3, you're going to get what they call clipping, which where your voice just starts distorting. It's too hot. You're too close to the microphone, or it's too loud. There's too much volume. If it's down below 24, and I generally they say 24, then it's too soft. It's too quiet. I generally try not to go below, somewhere between in ears. 6 and 18 is good. Your voice in there. Make sure you do that. I would also recommend that you turn on silent monitoring before you start recording, because when you do that, if I go back to Audacity here, right, and here's my on my toolbar, here's my microphone. If I right click on it, you'll see enable. Now I'm not recording. I haven't hit any recording button, but the little monitor is telling me how hot my mic is. So usually, when you're recording, that's if you don't have that on, the only time that this bar will tell you how close your mouth is when you're recording.
And
This way
I
you'll
would
get
say, I'm just going to jump in here and say, Steve Jack, I think that might be what we were looking at the other day. So there you go.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. I gotta get really, really quick. I'm gonna skip all this stuff. I knew I'd run out of time.
Lots of good
All right,
information, and I
track and
will
track
send these
controls.
out.
Huh?
Lots of good information, and I definitely am going to send the slides out, so that will help folks too.
Let's talk about the tracks and cutting and editing. All right, because I think that's important. I'm gonna get rid of this again. I'm gonna go back to coffee bar here for a minute. Actually, I could have just done. Oh, I had it open already. Oh, I did. All right. Let me pull this up. So I'm going to just say, let's say, hello everyone. Welcome to Audio Reader's virtual coffee bar for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. Let's get started. All right. Well, wait a minute. I forgot to say my name. Right out at that. I had something silly like that. So to edit this, somewhere I want to put my name right in there. This is where I want to put it, right? So I've already recorded. Let's get started. I have multiple things to do. Since this is at the end, I can come up here and grab, they call it the clip grab right here at this point. See where my mouse turns to it from a little kind of an I to a more like a C, a backward C. All right. That tells me up here it's a handle that I can now grab it and move it. So I can trim the ends either way where that mouse is. It's always up on the right, the upper corner portion of the clip. So I can have several options. I can always go back here and I say, okay, right here, and I zoom in where I want to go, right? And I find, oh, here's a dead spot. I'm going to do here. That way, what happened is in the recording, you're telling Audacity, here, don't play the rest of the clip that you recorded. Stop it right here. Okay. So I can come in here and I can go record. I'm Steve Grimm. Let's get started. Okay. So now I've done both. 25. I'm Steve Grimm. Let's get started. Okay. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this clip. But to do that, I click on the title bar of it and I just simply hit delete. Okay. So I'm going to take this back. Here's what I do a lot, especially if I have recording that I want to keep, but I just want to interject something. So I find my cursor where I want to put it. I do a right click on it and I do split clip. What I just did is from this one clip, I've made two. Okay. So that way I'm keeping this. And if I have any other recordings after it, now I could just come over here and say, my name is Steve Grimm. Okay. Then I am going to drag all the dead sound to it. I'm going to cut this out. Unfortunately, and I'm going to paste what I had at the end. And in this case, I'll just highlight them both and drag them both to that. And then you'll see that little yellow bar that says bunk. That means you've now directly connected to the previous clip. Now, my name is Steve Grimm. Let's get started. So I've just inserted a clip here. All right. If I wanted to get rid of the date, Wednesday, March 19th, 2000. Oh, that's too much. I didn't have enough. So I'll just delete this part. If I just wanted to, of course, again, if it's at the end, I can delete it by just dragging the clip this way. But let's say I want to keep this. Here's the part that I want to delete. Just highlight it. Drag your mouse over the part that you want to delete, and then simply hit delete. That's it. That's your delete. I have now deleted that guy. And if I want to go back, I hit Control Z and he's back again, right? But the general idea is you want to zoom in close enough where you see where there's no wave form right going. That's generally where there's silence in between the voice. Yeah, there's a question.
Let me just see.
Or maybe not. I thought I heard.
I had a super basic question, and it's obviously I'm taking algebra 1 and you all are dealing with differential equations. When I'm recording something, I know exactly what I'm saying, and then if I flub something, I hit the pause button up in the upper left-hand corner, and then sometimes I will with my wireless mouse click on the left, and there's a yellow bar like that goes over the spot, and then I go edit, delete. But sometimes when I do that, there's a little bloop that goes, in which case I then simply highlight it and hit delete on my keyboard. Am I doing something wrong, or is that the way you should do it?
Either way, right? There's many ways for Audacity to do it. I just described a few, right? The highlight here. I can come up here and do edit, delete, right?
Okay.
Or I can just hit delete, which is what you were talking about. And
okay.
Right? Or if it's something at the end of my clip, I can drag it and make my clip and end it right here at either end, right? I can do it on this end too.
Okay. All right.
Right. So if it's getting rid of your clip the way you want, then you can do it.
Yeah, because the only editing I do is when I'm going along and then I bumble a word or two and I boom, stop real quick, back up, get rid of it, then continue.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah, you guys.
I'm reading. Oh, I meant to, if it's just a little bit, then I grab this little thing and go back. But a lot of times I just go ahead and find the spot that I want to do, and I do a split clip, and then I just delete the clip that I just split. Okay. Right. It's how I do it. Because if I have let's say I've recorded, let's say 15 seconds or 20 seconds, and I do a lot of I do all sight reading. So sometimes I get into it and as I'm sight reading and I realize I'm saying the wrong syllable, right? Or the wrong thing that they mean, and I'm emphasizing the wrong word, and I'm just now getting what they're trying to say. So in that case, sometimes I got to go back 10, 15 seconds. In that case, rather than, I can highlight it like that and just delete, but I generally do the clip and split. But either way, it works. Either way will work for you. Either way is right. Either way is correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And if I can jump in real quick, one problem that I sometimes have when I'm editing is that I will pause the recording, and that doesn't actually let you go in and edit or delete things. You have to stop it before you can go edit it. So sometimes I'll pause it and go try to do something and I can't do it. So I don't always, but sometimes I just have trouble remembering I need to stop it so that I can delete something.
Yeah. A pause exactly. A pause is Audacity is assuming you're still not assuming. And to Audacity's point of view, you're still in record mode, not edit mode, right? You're just pausing your record mode. You're not out of it. Yeah.
Hi, this is Marlisa. I think probably the easiest thing I've learned is using the space bar to stop instead of trying to click the menu button.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
great
that
point.
actually, so you can stop it then, and then it lets you edit it, I think, at that point. But that's so much easier than trying to find the menu item.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I didn't even put that on the thing, but that on the presentation, you're exactly right. The space bar starts just like if I'm wanting to play. I put my cursor right here and I want to play it. I hit my space bar to let it play, to start the play, and I hit it again to stop the play, right? The same thing goes for recording. That's a great point. I do that. Yeah, yeah. I don't even think about my space bar, in fact.
So instead of when I'm recording along and I say, "Oop, I flub," or I want to stop to cough, or I mean, instead of clicking that, I just hit the space bar once, and
That's
that
right.
pauses it.
That
And then I
stops
go
it.
to the
That
bathroom
doesn't
or
pause.
whatever, come back, hit the space bar again, and it continues.
It doesn't, it stops the recording. So it doesn't pause the recording. So it stops the recording, right? So,
Okay.
so that you can do whatever editing that you want to do. And then when you're ready to start again, make sure that your cursor, right? See, here's the end of my recording. I just placed my cursor there. See how it highlights the yellow? That tells me, okay, my cursor is right up against the last clip that's here. That gives me confidence that I can start recording again. And now I'm recording without gaps between these two clips.
Okay. All
And
right.
this is Marlise. I'm going to jump in again because I don't mess with where the cursor is, and Audacity seems to be smart enough to
It
not
does.
record over the last thing I did, and it just jumps right in where it was.
Well, it depends. It does
Uh-oh.
if your cursor is somewhere before the end, right? But if you put your cursor out somewhere else, then it will record out there. So I just do it as a safety feature, but you're right. Generally, it just starts adding it to the end, and which is another thing that I wish we could do. If I needed to, if I drag these and now I have this gap that I want to fill, and I just want to say, okay, I'm going to start recording here, and I hit record. I moved my cursor here, right? And I start recording. Hello, hello. Hey, wait a minute. It put it here at the end. So Audacity does not trust that you're going to stop by this time, right? So it's going to just do it at the end and let you record for as long as you like, and then it'll be up to you to fix it, right? Oh, and I better drag this to whatever size and cut it. And I can do a right click on this as well, move it here, and do a right click to do a paste. And you'll see everything else jumped because I have the move, right? I just like I deleted that thing where if I delete it, it comes, everything gets rid of. In this case, I manually created this gap. So Audacity thinks that the gap has to stay. But anyway, um, this is how this is why Audacity does most of its recording at the end. So I think
Okay, I did want to just interrupt real quickly because I think Nick is going to jump off if you have a minute to share. We did want to just clarify that we do want to continue to encourage the WAV files, and I'll let Nick just speak to that real quickly because as we think that through, we realize there might be some reasons to keep that.
Yeah, specifically, and with you, Steve, for the weekend. So we have the trouble is we have many volunteers reading many different assignments on different days of the week, different lengths, durations, and sending them in different ways. And everyone has different internet services, all that. So I would say I put it in the chat here, but if you are reading on a day that you know we have automated processes, it does need to be waived. So that would be you for the weekend, Steve.
yeah, yeah.
Carl, I know on the call, Jim sometimes reads remotely for breakfast table times. Those would all need to stay wave in order for our automated processes to happen.
Yeah.
But all that said, again, if you have not heard, if you're doing something and you don't want to change, and what you're doing now is working, I would say stick at it. So if memory isn't an issue, file size isn't an issue, there's really no need to change. Yeah, that's kind of a general rule. And then specifically the wave file formats that I put in the chat, which is you can go up to 44.1 kilohertz as a sample rate. But the second one is kind of probably the sweet spot between file size and quality, which is WAV file at 16,000, which is what you've had, Steve, right, in your preferences.
So on that, Nick, for this, I don't for our purposes in sending this out, you're okay with me just leaving it as is?
Yeah, that's fine.
Or do you want me to put a caveat next to this?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, wave 16, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
But then again, if somebody is on here and they're doing it a certain way and you don't want to, risk it, wait, again, if it ain't broke, I think that's a very, very much a rule that we go by. Yeah, the thing is, there's a lot of variables in all of this. So bearing that in mind.
I might go ahead and put a note just for anybody who's seen it. I'll say a note down here below and say, if you have already been exporting with different settings without problems, keep
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll make sure to update that just so that nobody.
Okay. All right,
And
thanks.
hey, Nick, this is Frank real quick. I see people are saving their audio files into folders and things. I haven't been saving mine. Is there any reason any particular reason to save a file after it's been aired?
It's a good thought. I had that thought while Steve was talking as well. We it's just for safety, really, like every now and again something happens with a Dropbox upload, and if you haven't saved your file, I would say we don't. Again, the system that works for you is actually the best answer. But we certainly don't have any use for the Audition project folders. I know sometimes when people get started, they get confused between the exported WAV file or audio file and the actual Audacity project folder. So apart from saving it just as a backup or for a day, or maybe you use the
Right.
same file, yeah, once if certainly if it's a daily program and you haven't heard from us about any issues, you don't need to keep it any longer than that day. And as soon as I say that, though, something will happen this week.
Okay, well, with saving
You
it for
just
a day
jinxed
or
it,
two
Nick.
is probably a good idea. And it Dropbox does at least sends me an email. If I enter my email address, it tells me it did go through at least anyway. So that's also a nice feature to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, we had a whole rigmarole with that where some folks weren't getting those emails for a while. Dropbox were extremely useless in helping us get that fixed. So again, so many variables along the way. A little bit of a backup cushion is always a good plan, but certainly you do not need to keep like weeks worth of audio files or anything like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Nick. And I know he has to pop off to take care of some other pending needs. And I know we are all we're about 10 minutes after the hour. So, Steve, I
Sorry.
have had several folks ask for a part two.
Yeah.
In the chat, and I see folks nodding along here. I think that you have a wealth of knowledge, and again, I think it's always great to get all of us in the same conversation on this, because we are doing things that work for us and maybe don't work for other people, or we've come to a frustration that maybe somebody else has figured out along the way. So if folks are amenable to that, I certainly will send out these slides, and then maybe we can send me some of your specific questions or areas that you'd like more attention on, and I can get us all back together again for something like this. But Steve, you have generously developed this, first of all, thank you. And secondly, also offered to speak with folks one-on-one. And I will echo Nick's comment on the variables. And I just ask you all to think about how many different types of devices we all use, how many different locations we are in, how many different providers of internet that we have, how many different methods those providers of internet use, fiber or whatnot. And I can't even list them because I'm not techie like that. But it really, each of those little tiny steps makes it different. And as much as I'd love to give an answer, and I will tell you, when I started, I would ask Nick for the answer. There isn't one. So I appreciate your willingness to kind of look at things on a case by case basis, Steve, because I do think it is very different for each person. So
Absolutely.
I hate to kind of cut us off there. Is there any other pressing issue that anyone wants to throw out, or
I I just have one thing,
yes?
Trish, but don't send out the version of the deck that I sent you.
Okay.
I've made some modifications to it, and I'm going to make, as we mentioned with Nick, I'll make a couple more here. At the very end of it, I have some more advanced features. In addition, there's a section on audio, adding audio, music, for example, and then there's some advanced features to help get rid of hiss or enhance your voice, stuff like that. If you want to play around with it, then feel free to do it. I've given you some instructions there at the end that I knew we wouldn't hit, but it's there, right?
And this is Frank, before I forget, since we did this, I would say if it would be helpful, Carl and I are about on the same level on this thing. So he's been saying the same thing I've been thinking. So it would be helpful if you went back over the editing again, if we do a part two, just to go through that again. That'd be very helpful. And I would like to hear about the music. So I wouldn't just completely gloss over that. I think there are probably others who'd like to at least understand how that might be a possibility. And then Trish, sorry, I'm saying a lot, but Tris, it would be an interesting conversation for us to have either in part two or some other time. mistakes versus all capital letter mistakes, and what should we be re-recording versus what is okay just to leave and give it that live feel. That would be more of a discussion than because it's very subjective, but might be an interesting discussion at some point, Trish.
Love that. Thank you. I appreciate that, Frank.
Good topic. Yeah, and I'm sorry I rushed through that whole edit thing. I figured I spent too much time in front. I knew I'd had that risk. I had a lot to share, but yeah, well, I'm perfectly happy to do a part two.
Sounds great. Okay. Well, I see lots of smiling faces, and I'm grateful for everyone's time and effort to be here together. And it is about 3:15, so I am going to say thank you all. And again, everybody, a round of applause for Steve, please, if you would.
Back to you. Back to
Yay,
you.
love it. Okay, great. I gotta make Zoom fun in any way that we possibly can. I didn't ask for faces, so I could. But thanks everybody for taking the time to be with us today. And again, thank you, Steve. And I'll be sending out a recording as well as the slides. And once we get that updated, and then if you have any other questions or suggestions, please feel free to send them my way. Thank you all for everything you do every day for our audio reader listeners. They so much appreciate it, as do we as staff. So thanks, everybody.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.